Hello there, my beautiful friends, and so happy to see you today. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, I'm going to be talking about trust, and more specifically, trusting in life. So, I got this guidance, let's say, this morning to talk about trust, to talk about the flow of life, and to talk about how we can lean back into trusting what life has to offer us. So, for example, if you look back on your journey through life, it has always somehow worked out, right? It's kind of like maybe you had a serious addiction to something. Maybe you were in a very crazy money pinch at some point in your life. Maybe you've been to jail. Maybe you've had crazy circumstances with your wife or your husband, divorce, all those things. Maybe you have people really close to you die, right? All these crazy things happen to us in life, and they will continue to happen. And how do we respond to that? How do we trust in that it's going to be okay? So going back again to life, your life, you've seen through your experience that it has worked out so far, right? You're still here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to me. You're here. Somehow you survived all those traumatic experiences. Somehow life guided you in the right direction so that you could take one more step, one more movement, one more action towards another spot, towards saving yourself from whatever situation you were in before. That's kind of your track record, right? That's your track record of life. There's always been something there to keep you floating, to keep you going, even in your worst of times, even in your deepest depression, sometimes referred to as the dark night of the soul. There's been something there that has kept you going. Something deep inside of you has kept you going. So, what do we do in life? Like we're driving the car, right? And this is a great analogy that I've heard a lot of people use. We're driving the car of life, and we're trying to figure out, should I make a left? Should I make a right? Where should I go? And what we're actually doing is we're trying to use the limitations of our mind, of our experience, of our past to drive us into the future. And it's almost like, some people refer it as to, you should put the ego in the back seat instead. Like the driver shouldn't be the ego, your mind. The driver should be life, right? Trusting that flow in life, trusting life to drive for you. So putting yourself in the back seat and watching life drive. But what we do most of the time is we start to fight for that steering wheel, right? We're like, no. I didn't want to lose my job. Now I have to steer for a little bit. Now I have to, make a right over here, make a left over here, because you're driving in the completely wrong direction, life. What are you doing? Isn't that funny? The force, the energy field, the everything that has the ability to organize universes, galaxies at infinitum, from the beginning of time to the end of time, through infinity, that guiding force is not so good at driving. But you are, right? You're really good at driving. You even went to classes, You went to the driving school. You drove. You showed somebody that you know how to drive the car. You took the test. Had to study a lot in order to prove that you know how to drive the car. So this is kind of funny, right? That's why I'm bringing it up. Because we feel like we know how to drive the car. We know how to figure out life. We know how things should be going. And we protest when they're not going the way that we think they should be going. Does this sound familiar? This happens to me every single day, right? It's like, no, that wasn't supposed to happen. How come? What? No, that wasn't in my plans. I was completely doing something different today. So how can we lean back into life, fully realizing that It has had the steering wheel this whole time. The only time when things doesn't quite work out is when you're grabbing the steering wheel, which we're doing most of the time. We're trying to grab control of life. We're trying to figure it out, through our lists that we're making every day, through our planners, our schedules, our, organizers. Like, oh, I want to have a baby now, right? If I had a penny for every time I heard somebody said that, we're going to have a baby now. Oh, okay, interesting, right? So life has nothing to do with it, right? You're decided that you're going to have a baby now. And I'm not saying, of course, there are better times and worse times to have a baby. And of course, it feels like we should be using that steering wheel to try to move in a certain direction. So it's kind of like the free will versus the divine will. All I'm saying is, allow that divine will to come in more often. And here comes the dog who's telling you, yeah, that's the divine will, right? Walking right through the image as I'm saying that. How can you let Source, God, drive your life more often? Because I bet if you look back in your life, you'll start to realize that some of the decisions that you did in your life, major life-changing decisions, you were maybe not perhaps completely a part of. For example, who decided you were going to fall in love with a particular person? Was it you? Or was it that it just happened, right? It just happened. So there's so many things in life that are not completely in our control, not completely something that we're in charge of. So allowing ourselves to surrender back into that divine power and saying, okay, you know where to take me next. You've been guiding me this whole time, my whole life. I should be trusting you more than anything, right? And just on a day-to-day basis, try to sit with that feeling of trust. Try to sit with the feeling of grounding yourself back into that force that gave you life. Do you know how difficult it is to put together a body out of all of these things that are around us? Out of all the minerals, the water, all the essence of us, like all the pieces. Do you know how difficult it is to take all the pieces and assemble them into a human body? That's not something that happens by chance. I don't care what science says, right? That's not something that can be done by just like, let's invent a human. So whatever created you, the stars, the galaxy, the sun, everything around you, every beautiful thing that you see around here, also has a plan for you, has the organizational skill to put you together into a human, has the skill, in my case, because I'm a female, give birth to children, to produce a small human inside of you. I mean, that should just blow our mind. How is that even happening? We're not doing anything. We're just sitting there watching ourselves get bigger and bigger and having more symptoms, maybe morning sickness, all those things, right? We're not actually building that new human. So who's building that human? Who can you trust? You, the person who's sitting there watching a baby being built, or the force that's actually building that baby inside of you? Trust. Trust in your life. Trust in the force that's guiding you. Trust in being led by that force. Lead into that force. Spend more and more time of every single day in that force. And you'll start to realize that things start to change very quickly. Things start to open up. Things get moved around that no longer need to be there. This invisible hand is reaching into your life and saying, oh, that needs to go, that needs to go. We got to clear the path over here because this is where we're going. And meanwhile, back at the farm, you might be like, oh, why did that happen? Why did that disappear? I needed that job. Maybe you don't no longer need it. Maybe there's a new path that's being made for you. So, trust. If you can do one thing today, spend 5 minutes trusting life. Leaning back into that everything that's happening to you in every single moment is meant to happen for you. It's meant to move you forward. It's meant to make you into the next version of you. And sometimes it hurts. They call it fierce grace, right? For a reason. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it's a huge illness that you need to go through. Sometimes you have to tear your Achilles tendon, like what happened to me. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you ends up being the best thing that could have ever happened to you. And if the more you resist it, the worse it's going to be. The more you have the ability to accept it, which I'm trying to start to accept this dog who's barking at me, the better off you'll be. You got this. I love you. Namaste.